My friends, I am Vivian McPeak, and this is Hempresent, but you already knew that. If you have feedback, would like to suggest a guest or topic for Hempresent, email me at hempresent@gmail.com. I always enjoy hearing from you. Roman Villagrana is a Humboldt and Mendocino-California-based artist with roots in Oregon State and Seattle, Washington. He specializes in visionary art with psychedelic cultural influence and has been involved as a cannabis activist in many ways. On a spiritual mission to uplift vibes, Roman has used art to communicate his vision. He has helped bring forth Tribe 13 and the Interdimensional Art Movement as platforms for artists to express a transcendental experience. Branding himself as SynchroMystic, he brings forth a vision of harmony with community and nature and expresses an interdimensional existence that includes multiple dimensions colliding into one. He truly believes in a divine destiny for humanity, and part of my divine destiny is bringing him to you today. Welcome, Roman, to the show.
Greetings. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. You know, we go back, way back to your days in the Seattle scene. You contributed some amazing artwork for both the Seattle Peace Heathens and the Seattle Hemp Fest, both of which I was directly involved in. Before we delve into everything that you have going on, tell us a little bit about how you got started as an artist. What initially inspired you to draw and paint? And was there a time when you started to feel that art might be your central calling?
Well, that's an easy thing to answer because something has stuck out in my experience since the early beginning, and that is my older sister showing me drawings in her big sketchbook, or at least it looked huge, but I was a little tiny 3-year-old. And there was a girl in a bikini and a crocodile drawn with simple lines on a paper. And I thought that was magic. How can simple lines on a flat piece of paper give me the vision of recognizing a three-dimensional object? And at that early moment, I recognized art. And throughout my life, I was considered my artist. Since then, every time I would recognize art at school, it would stand out to me. The words of artists from our past that we would study would resonate with me. So I never separated myself from that interest, except for one day. I considered myself not an artist for one day in my life.
Okay. Do you want to get into that, or?
Sure. It's a very important day in my life. I said, I'm done with this. I can't figure my life out following this, the muse or the inspiration that leads me to what seemed like nowhere and except just frustration, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really honored that thought and let go of it. And then I started asking myself, then what? What is it that I want to do? What is this life? I asked myself very profound questions with an earnest desire to answer them truthfully. And I got a whole bunch of answers, or it led me to other powerful questions that I was thinking, why don't we ask these things to ourselves? Why are we just born in a world accepting life as it is? And that at the end of that day, I went to bed, woke up the next day as an artist. Because
well, I'm
the only
glad.
way I could express those questions or those answers that I received was to be an artist.
Well, I'm glad that next day came, because your art is just amazing. You have a very distinctive style, and I suggest to anybody listening right now to open up another browser and go to your website, SynchroMystic.art, SYNCHRO mystic.art. And simply scroll down to check out your amazing art during this conversation. What are the primary mediums you work in, and how would you describe your art process?
My art process, I generally take comfort in or have in the past. Recently, I've really befriended my iPad and the drawing capabilities because I don't waste paper and it's a lot easier to organize. But I have taken comfort in pencil and paper because it's the most accessible way to jot down visions or ideas. But as far as finished paintings, I take comfort with acrylic, oftentimes with airbrush, because airbrush just allows you to flow like nothing else. And those are my primary elements that I use to capture my visions. But most of my art revolves more on the meditation rather than the physical painting itself. I'm always trying to chase the vision down and trying to express the idea out. More importantly than trying to achieve a finished or finished piece of art.
Um, Briefly, what kind of role has cannabis had in your art experience? How has cannabis impacted your art or your approach to art, or in what and in what other ways do you find inspiration throughout the creative process?
Oh, cannabis is one of our greatest teachers, I must admit, not only personally, but even when I've taken breaks, I can't help but recognize it as one of my main allies for many reasons. I feel like it has taught us to be open-minded in many ways, not only with my art, but in general. Like it has helped influence people, a different way of eating, habits that we normally wouldn't look at. And those kind of things are really good to be inspired by as an artist because it removes us from the attachment of ourself and allows us to look at us from a higher state, pun intended, um,
Mhm.
at ourselves to um, recognize who we are beyond our own trapped ego. That being said, it can also trap our egos, and there is no silver bullet other than
Mhm.
your own self. But cannabis is one of the main allies in that, I feel. It also, in the beginning, it's a different story now, but in the beginning, it was one of our biggest allies as far as money and resources,
Mhm.
um, because we had a vision of bringing in an art movement to help spread positivity and influence and gather our people together. But that, as you know, takes energy and resources. And during the beginning of my mission, cannabis came through not only with the inspiration and the visions of this unity, but it also helped provide resources to make this unity come forth. So uh, I could go on and describe how important cannabis is because it's from the physical aspect to the spiritual aspect and everywhere in between. But it also humbles us to recognize that it is not the thing. It
Yeah.
is an ally. The
Yeah.
thing is ourself. And
It's
if we don't rely on ourselves, then it can easily become a problem. And we notice that within our circles of people having problems with cannabis themselves.
yeah.
It's one of the nicest problems we can have regarding addictions or what have you, but it can still be a problem if we don't pay attention to who we really are.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, it can interfere with our discipline and control and focus and a lot of things if we're not paying attention. We have a little under 2 minutes to before the first break. Um, you're part of the interdimensional art movement. What does that mean?
Well, in the beginning, I wanted to be part of an art movement like all artists, but um, and for a sense of belonging. But I am also part of a culture that doesn't want to be told or what to do or have to fit in a box. So I came up with an interdimensional art movement, interdimensional resembling uh, our infinite manner of art. It doesn't matter how we do art; it just matters that we express it. The acronym I am is the finite, is who we are, because that's the only person that can be responsible in expressing our vision. So to me, it encompasses the finite, which is our personal self, and the infinite, which is interdimensional, because we have no limits.
Excellent, excellent. We have maybe I want to get into Tribe 13, but I want to have a little bit more time for that. I do
Okay.
just want to say that I really appreciate your the perspective that you added at the end, talking about cannabis. It's a tool, and a tool. A hammer is a great tool. You can build homes with it. You can create almost anything, but you can also use it very destructively. And I think that that's a everything in life is kind of like that. And so I've done over 300 interviews, but I don't think anybody has ever really touched on that aspect of cannabis in such a articulate way. So I want to say how much I appreciate that coming into the conversation. I'm talking to Roman Villagrana. He is an amazing artist. Once again, SynchroMystic. .art. We're going to take a quick break and come back with our second segment, so don't go anywhere.
Time to roll out for the people that let us Hempresent. Hang loose. We're coming right back.
We're back with Roman. Roman, you were talking about that you wanted to be a part of a community, and I assume that when you were saying you were talking about Tribe 13. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Tribe 13 is the main emblem to personify that community that I'm talking about. And there's many reasons why I chose that number, and using the word tribe itself, because tribe itself is a separative kind of word, and my that's the thing that was trying to get over, is how to exemplify belonging without feeling like I'm calling myself an elite or a group of people that is outside of another group, but how can we fully express a unity? And to me, that's where the 13th comes in, because we're coming out of a world that was given to us that is broken down into 12 months, 12 hours of a day. Even on a religious level, we have like the 12 disciples of the Christ, or the 12 constellations. But in the center of the 12 constellations is the sun. The center of the 12 disciples is the Christ. And all these things are, to me, exemplary seed that was given to us by our forefathers of vision to bring unity to our world. That's why we have issues with all these symbols. And as a young adult, I was trying to make sense of these symbols, and I recognized that the 13 means the self, the true self, that wants to come out. So to me, to be part of this Tribe 13, you have to self-initiate yourself, which simply means you have to offer your true self from within outward. Yeah, I feel like each one of us was born to express ourselves, to share ourselves. But in this world, we live in a model that we're constantly trying to fit in. So we're constantly trying to be something else than who we really are, which has created every single problem that we know. That's my personal belief. But I really do believe every illness and sickness and depression is caused from us living in a world trying to fit in, instead of nurturing the individual soul to express itself. Because if we would all truly express our true self, there would be no need in the world. My personal belief, once again.
That is so deep and profound. I feel like we could probably just do silence for the rest of the show and let everybody, me included, just riff on that, because that is such a powerful perspective, man. And I think it's, from my experience anyway, it's right on. Looking at the power of the individual. On the other hand, why is a collective art movement important to you? What is it about collectivity that you connect with so strongly, and what sets that kind of movement apart from a more conventional or an individual approach to art?
Because we are individual, we are all one, just like the hippie vision that we all receive at a certain point in our life. There is no separation. If we think each other as being separate, that is the disease itself. So we're meant to rejoice in the expression that we have at the moment. I totally believe that. There was one time that I had a deep vision, and I saw a ladder up into the clouds, and I followed that ladder up to the clouds, one platform to another platform. I kept on going as high as I could. I got to this blissful state, but I found only myself there with all these beautiful toys to play with. And there was no one else to share it with. And then it hit me really quickly that, oh, I see. So I climbed all the way back down to express these ideas and visions with my fellow friends and family, because here in this dimension, there's something about having to share. But sharing from within ourselves, once again, going back to the Tribe 13 idea, not trying to go beyond who we are not. Because oftentimes we're trying to accumulate things that aren't ourselves. And even if we have good intentions, that in itself destroys us. When in reality, it's just simply ourself. And that's why I always use the party as part of the symbol to express what I mean, because at the party you bring yourself, your dance, your art, your music, you offer it to the party to create a vibe, and the vibe is blissful if we all do it right. And you know that, I know that, because one of the reasons I came across you is you are a great example of what I mean, by what your activism was during that time of bringing forth people through positivity. Cannabis was definitely the symbol, but the symbol was to bring people together. And you did a wonderful job during that time. And I really looked up to you during that time, because that's the meditation I was on. And I recognized you as an activist in what I believe.
Right on, bro. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's like the paradox of life, right? That we're individuals, but the one is the many and the many is the one. We're one, each one of us is one human being, but we're made up of quadrillions of individual particles and atoms, right? And even other living organisms in our own body.
Yes.
We've got trillions and trillions of individual living things that are not separate from us, but they are individual,
Yes.
So but we're all one at the same time. We're separate and we're one. And which is why I identify.
Yeah, the separate part is beautiful, because that's what allows us to share with each other. We're able to recognize and explore and experience each other. You couldn't make love if you weren't separate from your lover. That's a beautiful, miraculous experience, because we are all one. So it's a miracle that we're separate enough to be able to make love, or share a podcast. I enjoyed it.
And every individual one of us came from a joining of two people, but also a division of one.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Very, very high stuff, man. And I'm not even high. You refer to yourself as SynchroMystic, a combination of synchronistic and mystic. What does synchronistic mean to you?
Well, to me, it's like during these development stages of understanding these concepts for myself, I so badly wanted to converse with God. I was shedding my religion. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I instantly questioned all that when I became a young adult, and I shedded that, but I still couldn't shake the idea of this universal oneness, that I could call it God or whatever. And the more I would go into that meditation, the more I started recognizing synchronicities happening, as if nature, or whatever you want to call it, was communicating directly to me. And I also recognized that other people were doing it with themselves. So I started recognizing synchronicities as a language of God, and I was able to learn how to explore this communication with nature, God, or what have you. And that, to me, that was a very mystical experience. And just like random or synchronicity, the words accidentally came out of my mouth. And you know how we all do that. Every once in a while, we form a new word based on two words together, which is another power of cannabis. I must admit, you get really stoned and you start slurring your words, and sometimes some words coming together make you laugh. And they laugh because they're so profound that these two words came together, and they open up your consciousness into this unity once again.
I know as a musician that some of the coolest things come out of an accident, right? And then you're like, oh wow, I never would have done that on purpose. And I imagine that does that happen with art too, where you might screw something up and go, oh wow, what a cool direction, and then you incorporate that.
If you don't screw up and do that in your art, you're not an original artist. And that's a funny thing, to the way that I've healed myself with the religious input that I've received, such as like the original sin. Instead of thinking of it like I thought about it, I think of it like how you explained it. It was like an accident that like sprouted life.
Right,
and I could start believing in that. Like, oh yeah, okay, that's
originality. And then you got to wonder, was it really an accident?
Exactly.
Or was it meant to go that way and you didn't know it?
Well, that's the miraculous part. And I try not to say that too much, because that's quickly the answer. What if it isn't an accident? I consider it not to be an accident, but the we are very limited by our words. So mistake to
Yeah.
me just means something that you can't relate to another, and that
Right.
is a miracle.
Or maybe weren't planning, right?
Or weren't planning, or even if you planned it, there's no other way to we don't have the language to explain it
Wow.
because it's a new thing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I get that. Well, I got a new thing coming, and that is the next segment, because we got to go to another break. I'm talking to Roman Villagrana, artist extraordinaire, SynchroMystic, and don't go anywhere, because we have another great segment right around the corner.
Time to roll out for the people that let us Hempresent. Hang loose. We're coming right back.
All right, we're here with the final segment with Roman. Roman, you're in Mendocino County. I think you told me you've been there for a decade or more. I knew you back in the 90s here in Seattle. Before we started recording, we're kind of touching on that Mendocino County. It was kind of the breadbasket of the American cannabis culture in a lot of ways. A lot of the hippies from California, and San Francisco and the hate and all that started breaking down. And there was kind of a back to the land movement. A lot of people from that alternative culture, counterculture, Woodstock culture, whatever you want to call it, and others, and Vietnam veterans and old beatniks went to Northern California to kind of homestead and to grow weed and to just, be kind of able to commune with nature and be out of the rat race. And what happened is, as you kind of touch on this, an underground green economy, cannabis economy grew out of that, a homegrown economy, because people realized that, hey, originally, from what I understand, people started growing weed for themselves, right, just to have some weed, and then they realized, hey, I could trade some weed or sell some weed and get sugar and coffee and things that I can't produce myself. And then it grew into just a thriving, wonderful community. I mean, just an incredible, organic, spiritual, peace, love, natural based, large, interdependent, interconnected community. And that's been going on for 30 years or more, maybe 40, 50 years. And it's changing, and that's been impacted greatly by this kind of legalization model. And I call it commoditization. To me, it's not legal if people are still in jails and prisons and stuff. It's commoditized, but that's a whole different show. What are you're there now? What are your perspectives on Mendocino County and that community? And I know it's still a beautiful community, and there's still, a lot of legacy people there. But has it changed in your eyes?
Oh, it's completely changed. I'm really glad that you came back around to this, because I think what you said in the first segment really touches on a lot of things as far as the hammer. We have been noticing how the hammer is destructing things, kind of. And I really enjoy that we're doing this podcast, because I really feel like the visionaries of the movement, the cannabis movement, have to step up and do more work than ever has been asked of us to do. At the same time, it should be fun, because that's what we learned how to do that was the lesson from the plant. And I really feel like the entertainment industry, the art industry, all these industries that have been hand in hand with the cannabis, we really have to recognize ourselves as powerful people and accept the lesson that was taught to us by the plant and start expressing our vision correctly. Because if we don't do that, it's more of a corporate vibe that's taking over, obviously. And it's really disturbing the whole.
It's the same vibe that's killing the biosphere and everything.
Exactly, and it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, money is a strange thing, and it's really hard to change that once it gets into place, as far as the greed and the corporate vibes are. But that doesn't mean that we didn't learn a lesson, and that just means that the artists and the visionaries have to really step up and explain like themselves. Because before we used to be like rebels, or like go around the corner and hide and share these things with each other, and there was some excitement to that. Now you remove that, but then you commoditize it, like you say. It almost kills that spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because we are relying on the plant. And we mentioned earlier in the conversation is we're not supposed to rely on anything.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be ourselves. So it's a little bit harder now because the war is so bland. There's nobody really to be against in this situation. But we really have to remember who we are, and we have to really work at giving up ourselves into this, offering ourselves. And we really have to work hard at that. And that's beyond the cannabis industry.
It's kind of a pain. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's kind of a painful transformation and evolution, right? We have to grow into something new and shed something that was really our identity.
Well, that's the false part of it, because that's what's being questioned. What we really are needing to be is our true self. Again, like the Tribe 13 vision. And that is a very challenging situation, because we took comfort in the cannabis lifestyle that was provided by its resources and the people. And now we're having to re-question all of that. And the sad part is like what happens when that occurs is we start falling back into a systematic way of living. And that we cannot do.
Especially at this phase of humanity where we need great change.
Yes, exactly.
Existential change, right?
Exactly. And that's the one good thing about the plant not being there as a vice, is that this change has to come from within each one of us. We were lucky enough to experience an open window of this guidance from a plant, and the plant is still there and will always be there. But we can't be lazy and allow the plant and its resources to do it for us. Yep. And that is a hard call.
Yep. Another hard call is that we're getting to the end of the show and we have less than a minute. Your art is for sale via your website, right?
Yes.
Final thoughts in 30 seconds.
Like I was saying, we really have to come together and really take the lessons that we've learned from cannabis and really awaken our presence to offer it to each other, be helpful to one another. But more importantly, don't forget that you are an offering, and really nurture and cultivate yourself.
Roman Villagrana, found at SynchroMystic.art. Thank you so much. You have such a beautiful heart song. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
That concludes this installment of Hempresent on Cannabis Radio. When it comes to prohibition, you got the right not to remain silent. Activism requires a voice. Find your voice. Speak up for justice, because resistance is fertile. The Hempresent intro music is 7 Mile Beach by Joanne Rand, and the outro music is Take That the Plant by Stickerbush. Stay strong.
Marijuana, THC, sweet sativa, Deacon Queen, Santeria,
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.